Hey there. Nuclear energy is known for being powerful and destructive, capable of wiping out entire cities. So it's often associated with explosions, pollution, and radiation. But if you hop on Google and search for clean energy, which is supposed to be all nice and friendly, you'll see nuclear energy pop up in the results. How does that work? How can nuclear energy be considered clean when it's so destructive? Hey, but before we dive in, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notifications so you get our latest videos. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings are the most infamous nuclear events in history. The explosions caused horrific human and environmental disasters. The exact number of deaths is still uncertain, but estimates suggest Hiroshima lost between 70,000 and 135,000 people, while Nagasaki saw between 60,000 and 80,000 casualties. Even survivors faced decades of cancer and other serious illnesses from radiation, not to mention the complete destruction of infrastructure and radioactive contamination of the soil, making it unfit for farming for decades. And it's not just about military use. Let's move on to peaceful uses. Take the Chernobyl disaster, for instance. This infamous accident happened at a peaceful nuclear reactor used for electricity production, located about 15 kilometers from the Ukrainian city of Chernobyl. The reactor exploded in 1986, leading to terrifying consequences. The radioactive fallout spread over Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and even reached as far west as France and Italy, thanks to the winds. Millions of acres of forests and farmland were contaminated, and over 350,000 people were evacuated from their homes. Even after around 40 years, many areas still have lingering radiation effect. What's even scarier is that this disaster happened with only 5% of the reactor's radioactive materials leaking. Imagine if more had leaked. So, what can we conclude from this? Regardless of the use, military or peaceful, nuclear energy is associated with destruction. So how is it classified as clean energy? To clarify, we need to define clean energy first. Clean energy is simply energy that doesn't deplete natural resources much and produces minimal pollutants or smoke, especially when compared to traditional energy sources like gasoline and coal, which pollute the air with smoke. Solar energy, for example, is considered clean because it doesn't deplete resources much, except for the materials used to make solar panels and batteries, and solar panels don't emit smoke or exhaust during electricity generation. That makes sense. The weird thing is, if we apply this definition to nuclear energy, it literally fits the criteria. Yes, nuclear energy relies on materials like uranium and plutonium, but its consumption of these materials is tiny compared to other energy sources or fossil fuels. You can imagine that a small piece of uranium weighing just 1 gram can produce the same amount of energy as a ton of coal, 480 cubic meters of natural gas, or 560 liters of oil. And when it comes to emissions and pollution, nuclear energy doesn't release any gases that harm the atmosphere. Plus, nuclear energy has advantages over solar and wind power because it doesn't depend on weather conditions. If you go to a place without sunlight, solar panels won't work. If the sun's a bit weak, the panels won't be efficient, and if the wind dies down for months, wind turbines will stop working too. Unlike nuclear energy, which can be used anytime and under any conditions, since it relies on reactions inside the reactor and isn't affected by external conditions. Just one particle hitting a specific atom splits it into smaller atoms, and neutrons collide with other atoms and split them too, and so on. These continuous splits generate heat, which heats water, and the steam drives turbines, generating electricity. Another advantage of nuclear plants is that even a small plant can produce thousands of megawatts of power without stopping or taking breaks. This is different from gas or fossil fuel plants, which need many plants to meet the required energy and need regular breaks. Also, radioactive materials like uranium, contrary to what you might think, aren't super expensive. Nuclear fuel requires a big initial investment, but its cost is low in the long run. Moreover, the world's reserves of uranium and radioactive materials are much larger than reserves of gas, oil, and coal. All these advantages have led researchers to classify nuclear energy as clean, which is why many countries have built nuclear power plants. Currently, over 50 countries have nuclear reactors for power generation or medical and industrial use, and around 30 countries have started building nuclear plants in recent years. The US, for example, is the largest producer of nuclear energy in the world, with over 90 reactors, providing 20% of its electricity from nuclear power. France, for example, gets 70% of its electricity from nuclear power. Countries like Ukraine, Slovakia, and Hungary get half their electricity from nuclear power. And even Japan, which we often hear about due to nuclear issues, gets a quarter of its electricity from nuclear power. Some Arab countries are also making moves in this area, like Egypt, which has a nuclear plant in Daba with 4 reactors, and the first one is expected to start in 2028. While many researchers consider nuclear power for electricity to be clean energy, there are others who disagree and reject its clean energy label. They have several concerns, the first being potential explosions. We're not talking about nuclear bombs used in wars, as the destruction they cause is well known. We're discussing peaceful nuclear power, specifically reactors that generate electricity. If a reactor were to explode like Chernobyl did, the environmental disasters would be severe. Since 1952, there have been over 100 nuclear accidents worldwide, with the most recent being the 2011 Fukushima disaster in Japan, where a massive earthquake and tsunami hit the reactors, causing radioactive leaks. While there were no direct deaths, thousands of people were evacuated from the surrounding areas. Another major concern is nuclear waste. After the nuclear fission process, dangerous waste remains in the reactor, causing headaches for researchers because it emits harmful radiation for years. Any living being exposed to this waste can suffer serious health issues, and the scientific community still lacks a safe way to handle it. All they can do is dig deep holes in the ground and bury the radioactive waste, sort of covering up the problem without solving it. They mix radioactive materials with concrete, put this mix into rust-resistant metal cylinders, and bury them underground or in the ocean. Today, there are tens of thousands of these cylinders buried underground or in the ocean. In short, nuclear energy is considered clean because it doesn't emit exhaust or greenhouse gases and doesn't use up a lot of natural resources. But there are still major issues with safety and radioactive waste that we're not dealing with perfectly yet. That's all for today. If you made it this far, you're awesome. Don't forget to hit that like button before you go, so we can see how many people watch till the end. And if you have a late night question, drop it in the comments below, and we might answer it in our next video. Catch you later.